Hi everybody, it is Allison Dawrant coming to you from my art studio here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And one of these days I'm going to mix it up and I'm going to do a totally different welcome message. I have such a laugh. I was reading in the comments, some of you binge watch my videos, or you've discovered me and said that you're watching everything back to back, all in a very short time frame, a couple days. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to just mix it up. And right before I hit the record button, I'm like, I'm gonna mix it up today. I'm gonna do a different welcome message, use a different voice. Anyway, I just had to share that because it's just what is on my mind. And for those of you that follow me know my videos are unedited. I suppose they're also unfiltered, probably. And I just really want to share random art inspiration that's coming to me in the moment. The more I historically have tried to plan, say, what I would like to show in a video or what I would like to paint, it just doesn't work. And I feel like for my authentic style, this is the best way to, present to you all. So in front of me, I have my painting, which I had titled Dream Up. And this is one of my watercolor art poetry paintings that I would say it was probably inspired by the Australian artist Laura Horn when I had years ago taken one of her classes titled The Melting Pot. And for those of you that subscribe to my channel and you've possibly binge watched my videos, you would probably remember me referencing Laura as an inspiration, and probably you can see some elements pulled in from her style into this painting, especially this one. And anyway, I just wanted to share that class because I believe she still offers it, and it was just a really, really great class to loosen up and to hone in on mixed media supplies and mark making and colors of watercolor that you might enjoy. And so when I sat down to paint this watercolor painting, I just approached it as pulling in colors that I was just kind of craving in the moment. My favorite colors, whether they mixed and matched well, it didn't really matter. I love this deep, dark Payne's gray. I love wearing navy. I've never been much into wearing black, although I know that's a staple color. So navy is, it's one of my favorite colors to wear, and that doesn't always apply to what I'm doing with my artwork. Sorry, I just got distracted because I have my studio is in front of windows and I saw part of it was open. A friend just walked by and caught my eye. So anyway, I'm distracted. But going back, colors that I would choose to wear are not necessarily colors that I would put in my paintings. But I love navy, and I really, really love not quite black, but versions of bluish black like this Payne's gray, or I believe it might be called indigo blue. The reason I'm thinking of indigo blue is I splurged, and this was a little Christmas present to myself this year. And oh, this is called Starry Night. So Starry Night is made by the Stoneground Paint Co., a company based out of Saskatchewan, Canada. And this is gouache, so it's a very opaque looking kind of watercolor and acrylic mixed together. That's what a gouache is in a very basic sense. But this Starry Night, I thought, oh, this is such a gorgeous color, and I really don't have it in a gouache. I make my own dark blue with watercolor, but I would just love to have this to dip into. And whoops, you can see I do want to, I'll do a little swatch with this one today. And you can see I got this cute little tin from the Stoneground Paint Co. These are wonderful little tins, and you can get magnetic palettes, or you can use different types of adhesives to get these little pans into the tins, but I just kind of use what I have. I was recently gifted some watercolors which I wanted to swatch with you all today, and that's if I don't get distracted, because I'm already distracted by my beautiful watercolors. So this one was the other color. back to the painting. This dark, I really hope to achieve that same dark in another painting with a Starry Night gouache. We can just do a little sample test of that now. And then the other one, which I really wanted to share, one of my favorites. So I am gonna just pull it off my palette. There's still a lot of paint left in here, but I knew that when I was at the art store, I wanted to stock up on this one because it's a favorite. So this is called Pistachio. And Pistachio is also made by the Stoneground Paint Co. And it's a gouache. So what a beautiful bluish green, and it's kind of a pastel. It reminds me of, I think it's Phthalo Green by Golden in their acrylic paint, but this is, again, a water-soluble gouache. So I'm just going to show you what those look like, because that's just where the video is going today. And in one of my recent videos, I had just swatched this palette of the Stoneground Paint Co. with you all. And so I'm just gonna turn it and use this upper corner. And then I'll go back to my painting Dream Up in a moment. So I'm gonna use my, where's my watercolor brush? This brush is so well loved. I no longer see any text written on it. I believe this was, well, I know this was by Holbein. It's a watercolor brush. All the bristles are really dull and it's no longer very rounded because I just use this for everything. I'm a little bit hard on my watercolor brushes, and this was gifted to me when I had purchased some Holbein paint. And at the time, I really wasn't a watercolor artist, but I just was like, okay, well, I have this watercolor brush and it's round and it's big, and this is now not only my favorite brush, but when I purchase other watercolor brushes, I buy the large size. So I think this is a size 12, and again, it's round. So Princeton Neptune, that's a really good, Princeton's a great brand if you're looking for a nice round watercolor brush made with synthetic hairs. So I always appreciate companies when they're not using animal hair, because it's just so easy to get around that these days. And we do see some words on here. It says India and maybe 5036. Barely can read what's on here. Anyways, but if you have just a large round watercolor brush, so a size 10 or 12, you can kind of get the same feel probably of how I am working in my paintings. I'm gonna activate this little watercolor palette, and then once it's saturated with some water, I'll do a swatch. But now I can go back to my art poetry painting, and you can't see the whole painting, I realize that, so I'm going to just zoom you out for a second. And I really love doing the drifts. I almost feel like when I start my paintings, or these, you know, I call them gardens in the sky, I tend to almost ground myself in my art practice by doing some drips and then working outward and creating a composition that's really kind of heavily focused in the center, but with white space, that blank space around the outside. And of course, that's not something I do all the time, but that's something I really like in my work. And so yeah, back to this, I wanted to paint something where I could just kind of sit in my studio, stare at that blank page, and on days when I just felt maybe a bit more uninspired, instead of looking through an inspirational book or going looking for inspiration, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great just to have, you know, on a bulletin board or framed on a wall, just something that I can just look up and be like, oh yes, I forgot about this mark. You know, historically I love this mark, but you know, you get in a rhythm. Sometimes I forget the mark making that I love. And it's really handy just to keep paintings that you feel have turned out well, they feel authentic to you, and just putting them up so you can see them for inspiration for later. And again, I sidetrack. I just realized I'd love to embellish this gold leaf in here. And what better way than using this Uniball Signo pen, which is from Japan. I really, really like this pen. And I'll just show you. And this is a pen that will probably smudge if you did it over acrylic paint. It may not work very well. That's my guess. But I just know that I really like to use this gold pen over canvas material. So again, this is a canvas print, and I'm just embellishing it. So part of me, sometimes I actually I don't embellish the whole thing, and maybe that looks unfinished in some ways, but I also kind of like that artsy asymmetry, and you know, it kind of keeps people guessing. I feel like it's more appealing than doing maybe the whole thing. And I kind of feel like the gold, I love the positioning of the leaf to the gold moon, just almost as though it's reflecting, they're kind of reflecting off of each other. There is another gold leaf up here, but I'm not going to embellish that one. And I might just do, I can't remember if I'd used bronze to do these little dots. I really like using these bronze Posca paint pens. So you can see the bronze color on here, the lid. And this is a medium size. This would be too thick of a point. This is a rounded point. This is an acrylic paint pen made in Japan, really wonderful quality. But I think I would probably have to use something smaller. I might use I do have a bronze Uniball Signo, and I might just see if I can find that. Where are we? Okay, I don't seem to have that handy. Oh, there it is. Okay. So here's the bronze Uniball Signo pen, and you can just kind of see the difference between the gold and the bronze. And I buy these individually at Kensington Art Supply here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So if you have access to a local art store that you can support, that's wonderful. And I really like that they offer supplies to be purchased individually, so you don't have to invest in all the colors, all the things, even though sometimes that feels really good. You know, if you don't love the set when you get home, you know, or affordability wise, if you're on a budget, it's just really great to invest in, say, your favorite color. And you can just see how that takes this up a notch as far as beauty and interest. And that's just what I like in my work. And I like to embellish my reproductions, my prints, whether they're on the fine art giclée material or whether or not they're on canvas. So I just want to share, you know, it's so funny. I thought I did mark making over top of this bronze watercolor splotch. So that is too funny that right now I'm remembering that I could have sworn I had painted marks over that, but I guess I didn't. And I'm gonna go back now. We'll just let this dry. And I'll go back to, now that these are wet, I'm just gonna wet my watercolor brush. And I'm gonna show you Starry Night Gouache by the Stoneground Paint Co. Oh, that's amazing. That's really, really gorgeous. So with gouache, you can just see there's more opacity, there's more pigmentation, and I could add a darker color in here to, you know, make it even darker and less blue. But I just, I really like that a lot. It's very beautiful. So I'm going to also, what I like to do is clean off my brush on a separate sheet. So for those of you that follow me, you know that instead of dipping my brush back in water, because I do put a lot of paint on my brush, I'm just gonna get it out. You can see where I put it over top of acrylic paint because you can get a resist technique. So this area here, where I had earlier cleaned off my brush with acrylic paint, that light pink, you can just see the watercolor resisting, which is an interesting effect. So you kind of learn through, you know, doing things you maybe wouldn't otherwise. Art is all about creating and playing, and those happy accidents, those unexpected outcomes are what really make it fun and help you figure out what you love. So I am now going into Pistachio Gouache from the Stoneground Paint Co. That one that reminded me of phthalo green. And you can just see how gorgeous that color is. It's very unique. And I really like the quality of that. So yeah, that is, again, I'm just gonna write beside it. Make sure I know how to spell pistachio, yes. And I've really come around to using Micron permanent black pens. So it's archival ink. This is called a Pigma Micron 10. And this is a 0.6 millimeter line. So it's really, really hard to read. But this is, yeah, 0.6 millimeters. It's a Micron pen. I really like these to do mark making over top of dried watercolor. I don't know if I would trust them not to run if I was doing some type of work over top or varnish, or if it got wet, but I do find on paper over dried watercolor, this is just a wonderful pen. Okay, so there we go, Starry Night and Pistachio, 2 new colors. And I'm gonna see, I don't have any pistachio in this painting, and this really isn't quite like Starry Night. This is a much more dark, deep, sort of a midnight blue. And I feel good that I can set this aside because it's mostly embellished how I like it. And so yeah, I'm gonna put that over here. And something that, well, there's a few things. So what's coming up in this video, I think my goal is to, I want to show you, I got some beautiful, beautiful art mail and new watercolors from my friend Kristen, who's in New York, and she is just a wonderful person and artist, and we know each other just through, I suppose, social media and YouTube, and she had kindly sent me some just exciting mail. So because we are having a Canada Post strike and I have not been able to ship anything or receive anything, since probably November 11th or 12th, and today is December 26th. So I just went to the mailbox, was it 2 days ago, and received all this mail that had been piling up, and it was such a surprise to get this. So she sent these beautiful stickers, which I'll have to ask her where these are from. These are just so sweet and artistic and have a real kind of Japanese influence. So thank you, Kristen, for those. She'd also sent me, well, first I'll show you this Paul Rubens 14 color 5mm tube watercolor set. So I'll just, I'm gonna swatch that with you all shortly. That was kind of my goal of my video today if I get there. And I couldn't wait to share with you her, I feel like she has just nailed that reticulated pattern that I also love so much in my work. And I'm not sure if she was doing this technique before my videos, but I just think this is so beautiful. So this was on watercolor paper, and it's just gorgeous. It has this beautiful light pink pearlescent. I don't even know what she used in there. But just such a lovely little piece of artwork, you know, even without the mark making. I almost see a baby bird here with, you know, almost the beak open and the eye, and I see a lot of leaves. It's just very calming colors. So thank you so much, Kristen. And I did do a video with rainbows and clouds and really love her color palette, and I love getting rainbows, love color. And then this is so cool too. So in videos that I had done quite some time ago, I was sharing these art cards and how I liked to use them. And again, these effects, it's that reticulated pattern, like just check this out. It's just stunning. So she had sent me these little cards, almost the size of artist trading cards. And I told her that I might, well, frame a couple, and I also might do some collage with these. And it's really neat to see how the colors she chose and how they work together. Just gorgeous. This one's really neat. All that blank space, and yeah, it's just beautiful. So I wanted to share that. Oh, and I'm gonna see if I can share something without bumping you all. So this is sitting on my windowsill, just by my table here. And I had just purchased this little frame at Michael's. But it was a great size for some of my artist trading cards and my art poetry. Now this, for some reason, I had turned it around, and I think that was because this painting was longer, and I didn't really want this. This is quite strong and tight, and I didn't really want to dent this artwork. So I had turned it around and kind of put it underneath like that. And this is very similar to what I was just showing you about, you know, my favorite mark making, and having just a painting that I have done recently, maybe I'm still working it out, and having it sitting in a place where I can see it and using it as inspiration. So I was thinking these cards that Kristen had done, you know, this is much more, this is way better for size. And so just as far as artist trading cards and displaying them, and, you know, maybe changing this up daily or monthly, I would definitely want to do it daily, but I would forget. So yeah, just kind of just an interesting idea, or as a little gift to someone that maybe doesn't have a lot of space, is, you know, doing a little piece of art and putting it in one of these frames. So this one, I was gonna see if it had the color. I don't know the color, but I can always link that. It was just from Michael's Canada. And I'm going to, what was I going to do? Oh, I'm going to pull a card from my art poetry deck. And I'm just going to give the cards a bit of a shuffle here. And I'm gonna have a drink of my Rooibos chai and just, whoops, pull this top card. Okay, so filter out the negative from reaching into you. And I'm gonna just have a drink here of my tea. Sorry if that was close to the microphone. So this is, yeah, one of my art poetry paintings that has a similar kind of grounding feel to Dream Up. And again, it's interesting. It has that really dark indigo blue and the one drip, and then sort of coming out, leaving a lot of negative space, which is funny. Filter out the negative from reaching into you. And I was talking about negative space and leaving some negative space. And in this, I had written, there are brighter days ahead. And I think it's just important to remember your internal dialogue. So whether that's when you're creating, you're painting, or, you know, just going through your day-to-day life, what is that inner dialogue that is going through, you know, that inner voice in your head? And can you catch yourself if it's starting to go down a road that's unnecessary, that might be slanted towards more negative than positive? And I know for me, especially over the holidays, I really have to catch myself kind of having that inner dialogue, which is just totally unnecessary, and being able to just recognize it, even if you can't change it, it's just so helpful. So for myself, I feel like this card is really important. I try to be positive in my life. Some days just are harder than others, and I caught myself this morning having more negative thinking. And I'm really confident in my art, but I would say outside of my art, I might not be as positive. Definitely when I'm painting and when I'm creating, I maintain a really positive confidence attitude, and that I think has just come with a lot of practice, because it definitely wasn't something that just happened straight away when I began painting. So I'm just going to slip that back in the deck. And I have some other really beautiful decks I'm going to share. So this is the Art Journal prompt deck, and I tried for 1 month a membership called Get Messy Art, and it was a great membership. I really loved the classes, the courses, but it was just a little bit over my budget at the time for wanting to continue it. So I had taken, I believe it was like $5 a month Canadian just to try it out. Really recommend it. It is a great membership. And yeah, I had purchased this Art Journal prompt deck from their shop. So they do have an online shop, and this has 120 prompts, 6 categories, and it says all the mess, which is really cute. Love this little box. And so the first, I'll just select a color card. Those are really gorgeous, bright colors. And that is by Andrea Chebelot. So I'm gonna grab that pen and just, I will spell her name. I will also put it in the comments. But Andrea, Chebeleu, Chebelot. Schebeleu. I think I spelled that correctly. So this was, you know, the artwork that she had done. It looks like a mixed media piece for this color card, and this will come in handy when I do the swatching today of my Paul Rubens watercolors that were gifted to me by Kristen. She said that she loved the neons in the palette, and just when I was squeezing them out this morning, I could see a lot of these gorgeous neon pinks and oranges, and I think we will probably get there today as far as inspirational colors that match this card. Now I'm going to flip through and just grab the first one that says Marks. Oh, and it's funny because I had pulled this one for my last video, Helen Wells, so I might just put this one back and grab another just randomly. Okay, this one is standing out. This is mark making, and really interesting because there's graph paper in the background, which is something you don't really think of to collage with, but that's quite interesting. And also the neons in here. So this is Ingrid Murray for mark making. And then as another category, technique, just gonna see, this one is the first one I was pulling out, and I'm trying to think if that's an L or an I. I think it's Ika Vantiani, Vantiani. And so this is a technique card. Well, this is cute. I really haven't gotten to know this deck, but it says stitch onto the page by hand or by machine. So that technique I'm not going to do today, but we'll just put it here. Marks, this one's just scribble. So that one's something we can probably do at any point in time. This one, practice your color mixing and use only colors that you have mixed or created yourself. That's pretty inspiring, that little card. And then the medium, we'll just pull. This is, again, I'm gonna have to spell the last names. So Carolyn S. Nehring. So Nehring. And the medium, which is markers. We may or may not get to that today. And journaling by Kaylee Gray, who started Get Messy, I believe. In general, I'm very fond of this era. So that was that little collage piece on here. And this is sort of a prompt, a question, and it says, "This I know." And so first I'm going to just jot down her name. So this is Kaylee Gray, as the color gray. So this I know. So if you are watching this video now and somebody said, what is something that you know, and how would you finish this sentence? This I know. And for me, I know I need creativity in my life every day to thrive. That I know for sure. So that's a great prompt right here. We have our color prompt, our mark making prompt, technique, which is sewing, which I do want to get into at some point in time, and then a journaling prompt and a medium prompt, markers. I'd just forgotten. So going to grabbing just whatever card is easiest to pull, and the artist on this prompt is Christy Nazaro. And this prompt is to draw a black circle in the middle of your page and add marks with a white gel pen. I'm just looking to see if I have a gel pen. I think gel pen is probably like a jelly roll pen. This one is a gray, but if you're not familiar with a gel pen, I'm pretty sure this is what she is referring to. I do have a white gel pen somewhere. So that's another prompt. And again, the artist is Christy with an I at the end. And it's kind of hard to see. I think it's Nazaro, Nazarro. Christy Nazaro. So So do we have 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, we do. Okay, so I can definitely link those names. And I'm just gonna kind of keep these handy in case I refer back to them. I'm just excited that I got to use this deck today. And there's one more deck that I want to pull out a card from. And it's actually a cube, color cube. So I have these 2 huge color cubes that were also gifted to me by somebody I had met through social media, this channel, and so many generous folks on the other end here. I just feel so lucky. And I really haven't used this color cube. I need to get in the habit of using it. It's just so beautiful. This is by Sarah Renee Clark. So that's how you spell her name. This is volume 1, so there's 2 volumes. And I need to take some time to really get to know a bit more about this cube. But I'm gonna start by just picking out a color from the color cube. Oh, this is a really, really gorgeous palette. So we'll definitely be seeing some oranges and maybe amber hues from this Paul Rubens watercolor set that I'm going to be swatching. Tangerine is such a gorgeous, color. It reminds me of rose or a peach. Really, really pretty color. I use that a lot in my work. And teal as well, and then black. I'm just gonna look here. I'm just gonna set that down and flip the card over. So this was the image where those colors were pulled from. And I can kind of see the lightest hue of tangerine. I mean, this would be the very, very lightest that I could kind of, you know, see a little bit of that in this particular painting, Dream Up, that sort of a fleshy color. And I often use these other colors, but not in this particular painting. I do have a little bit of black down here, so I have the indigo blue, but then there's probably this middle tone of the black. And that would be a really lovely palette to do one of my paintings with. I'm just gonna put that aside and we are gonna do some swatching. So I just got this yesterday. I was really lucky that it came December 24th. And so my husband and I, because we didn't have any mail for so long and we just we thought it would be fun to just wrap up even, you know, subscription magazines. He gets The Economist, and I was waiting for some art books, and it was just too funny that we were like, okay, well, let's just, when they land on our doorstep, when we finally get our mail, it's been so long that let's wrap them up and open them on Christmas. And so that's sort of what we did for gifts for each other, was just gifts from other people that finally arrived. And so this Paul Rubens set is tubes of 5mm watercolor. And I was so excited that this morning I needed some downtime, and I grabbed a tin that I had, my Neocolor crayons, which I have in a drawer handy here. I find actually my legs don't really fit under my art table here because I have these drawers, but I just keep all of my crayons. I have 2 drawers, one on the left, one on the right, and I keep the number 1s on the left and the number 2s on the right. And I'm totally digressing, but I had this tin left over and I knew it would come in handy. I do like to save things, and just to be accountable. My goal this year is to consume less and create more and donate as much as I can that I don't love and I'm not using. That has been hard for me, but I am slowly working towards that. I'm glad I didn't donate this tin. And what I also received from Kristen was really sweet. These little magnetic watercolor, I think they're called full pans, and the watercolor's still a bit wet, but they are basically a plastic flat base with a magnet that I can just stick in my tin. So I'm pretty sure these are like a full pan. And I'll link the name of the guy that owns, I think it's an Etsy shop called Arts to Embers. I'll just write that down for you. And I will also link it. So, Arts to Embers. And I think his name is Zak. I looked very briefly today and I couldn't find, I wanted to purchase 24 more of these to fill up my tin, and I have some Daniel Smith watercolors that I would love to squeeze out of the tubes and just make accessible. So Art to Embers is the name of the Etsy shop. And when I had written to Kristen and asked to clarify the name, we think probably they're out of stock, but I think Zak is, I believe it said he was a stay-at-home dad and he loves watercolor supplies and creating them. And I almost feel like some of it was plant-based, so that was exciting, and I want to go back, but you may need to request these, as when you search for them, they are currently out of stock. So much information, right? And so I'm using this tin, and I have my water, just trying to think of how to organize myself here, and I'm gonna do a swatch on my Canson XL watercolor paper, which in the bottom corner you can see 140 pounds or 300 GSM. It's 11 by 15 inches, so I'm gonna tuck it underneath my watercolor tin. And this is just a good paper for doing swatches and playing around. It's a fairly good quality paper for, I find, for watercolor. And I am just gonna go through, oh, you know what I realized? Okay, so these I will link. Paul Rubens, this is all, is there any English on here? There's no English on here, so I will again link the description, but I have this cheat sheet that I can put towards, I could swatch right on here. I'm not sure how this paper will go, so we'll just start and see. And so I'm gonna start from left to right. So Opera Yellow, which is this first one. These are so vibrant, so I'm gonna go back to my round brush, which had quite a bit of pistachio on it. So I'm gonna use this water here and just clear off my brush a bit. And because I just squeezed these out of the tube, I don't think I have to activate them. So here's the Opera Yellow. Really beautiful, transparent. That is definitely a neon yellow watercolor. Very, very beautiful. And then we're gonna go into the neon orange, which on here it's called Opera Golden. And these are called classic watercolors. So these are still quite soft. They're not fully dry. But if you like using neon, this is a wonderful, wonderful set to get those neons. And the next one is Opera Orange Red. Really vibrant. It reminds me of a fluorescent red by some of the other companies. And then Opera Orange. Which is sort of in between Opera Orange Red and Opera Golden. Oops, and I'm just gonna fix a cord here. Whoops, sorry. And then next we have Opera Light Red. And that again is like a light fluorescent red. And just so you know, I don't promote any products on my channel, and I'm not paid by any companies. And this was a gift, a very generous gift. This is Opera Red. And then next we have Opera Rose. Oh, that's really, really pretty. It has sort of a violet undertone. And I'm just gonna see if I can move this a little bit over here. And just to make it easy for myself, I'm going to go to the Opera Green at the end here. And then the Opera Blue. So these are quite transparent, traditional type of watercolor consistency. And I'm guessing they're like a student grade paint. I'm not too sure. Whoa, look at that Opera Ultramarine. That is really a beautiful, beautiful blue. And then we have the Opera Purple. Yeah, these are amazing. I can totally understand how you can get addicted to these neon colors that are so much fun. Opera Violet, that's probably one of my favorites. And I have to admit, I had purchased Opera Violet, or sort of an equivalent, in Daniel Smith watercolors in a tube, and I had splurged on it, and I really should have taken it back. The binder, for some reason, it just did not mix with the pigment, and whenever I would squirt it out, and even despite mixing it, I just couldn't get the pigment to mix with the binder. So I know Daniel Smith is a wonderful company. A lot of watercolor artists, that's all that some of them use. I know that. And in my limited experience, you know, I've been a watercolor artist for a very short time, I feel. You know, I really didn't get into painting, especially watercolors, probably been doing it about maybe 4 years now. And so I don't consider myself an expert by any means. Okay, now I forget which one. Where am I? That one. So I think Opera Pink. This one's the one I didn't do. Okay, where am I going? Oh, yeah, but I feel like I don't have a strong opinion about it at this point. I really like to support Canadian companies that are non-toxic, and I try and use more artist grade, professional grade now, just because I'm selling my work mostly. Okay, this is like artwork in itself. What a beautiful little swatch. And so there you have it. And so I will link this. I'm just gonna set it. And so I'll just quickly run it through with you all again. So Opera Yellow, Opera Golden, Opera Orange Red, Opera Orange, Opera Light Red, Opera Red, Opera Rose, Opera Pink, Opera Peach, Opera Violet. I probably don't need to say opera. Opera Purple, Opera Ultramarine, Opera Blue, and last but not least, Opera Green. So gorgeous transparency and beautiful colors and neons and what I kind of want to do right now is just deciding, maybe I'll grab those prompt cards and let's grab color. Practice your color mixing and use only colors that you've mixed or created yourself. And so I feel like we could mix maybe 2 of these colors to make our own new neon color. And so I'll just mix maybe, I'm just gonna get my mixing palette. Oh my gosh, I have so much on my desk. I have this little palette that I had received when I had purchased my Beam Paints paint stones. And although my watercolor, because my water is kind of tinted that opera violet, I might mix the opera violet, which is this one way at the end. Okay, I'll do a little reorg of my desk. So this one at the end. So opera violet, we'll just put it right here. And instead of what I want to do, instead of, let's just see, so here's the opera violet. What I like to do in my artwork is, in order to make the brights stand out, I have learned to incorporate neutrals. So with complementary colors, if you mix complementary colors, so complementary colors are red and green, purple and yellow, and blue and orange. So if I was to mix this opera violet with the opera yellow, I would just be curious what that neutral would look like, because these are neons. And so if I was to do this without using neons, it would come up as this really interesting brown kind of burnt sienna color. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mix those. And interesting, I'm getting more of an orangish brown. And that's a really good neutral, actually. And if I wanted it to be more dramatic on, say, the purple side of things, I'm gonna add more of the opera violet. And oh, that's really, really pretty. So again, when you're mixing the 2 neons, they don't turn into a neon, but those colors are really interesting and beautiful. And then let's just, instead of going heavier on the violet, let's go heavier on the yellow and mix that in again. And I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow just for purposes of demonstrating this color mixing. Maybe a little bit more. Oh, I need to do a little bit more because that's very much the same. So going a little bit heavier on the yellow. It's tricky to do because it's so light, whereas that purple is darker and pigmented. But you know, that's just a fun exercise in mixing, and I almost want to do it with the other colors, a couple of the other colors. So if I was to do that with, so red and green as complementary colors, so they are across from each other if you look at a color wheel. And so if I was to take the opera green, and we'll just put that here, I'll just put it here, and I'm gonna mix it with which red? Probably the opera red. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one here. get that opera red, and then we'll mix them. And I'm gonna go a little heavier on the green. Oh, that's a really, really nice earthy kind of army green. Oh, that neutral is amazing. I love it. And then if we were to go a little bit heavier on the red instead of the green, and I'll just put it down here. That is the color that we would get. Really, really nice, rusty kind of fall color. And last but not least, let's do blue and orange. So if I went to the opera, opera blue. And I get a ton of pigment, so that's just the way I like to work. And it's a good way when I'm doing videos because you all can see the colors really well. And I'm, though, very generous with the pigment and the paints. That's just how I work. So some of you may prefer the more transparent watercolor look instead of this really heavy pigmented look. I'm gonna go into the opera orange red. It's also because my pans are still drying, so I'm just gonna put that orange in here. And then we're gonna mix them a little bit heavier on the orange. It's a really nice color. Great neutral, and then I'm gonna go a little bit heavier on the blue. Oh, that color is awesome. That is not a color I would, if I was going to the art store, I would never look for this color. I mean, well, I shouldn't say never. I most recently went and I was thinking of neutrals that I wouldn't otherwise buy or mix up on my own. But just knowing how these mix up, this makes this type of palette when, you know, if I wasn't comfortable mixing colors, I would feel a little bit more stuck in this color palette, you know, painting sort of rainbow-itis, a full work of just these rainbow neon colors. But knowing that when you mix two complementary colors, so the purple, the yellow, the red and green, and the blue and orange, so those colors that are across from each other on the color wheel that make secondary colors, neutral colors that would really look good in artwork, you know. So this is a lovely, lovely palette. And I probably would never have thought of mixing such neon colors. I've often just used the neon in their full, sort of in the full, their full state. And so I'm just gonna set that aside and let it dry. And there was so much pigment in these tubes. Again, I had filled those whole pans, and I could probably fill at least a full pan again with what's left in here. So these are 5 mils, and they're also numbered, which is really helpful. And I'm just looking to see. Yeah, so I can put the colors, the numbers, and the names in the description. And again, this is by Paul Rubens. And there's the front of the box. So 14 colors and primarily neons. And so let's just move this aside, and I'm just gonna grab my tea. So we followed that prompt. This reminded me, oh, markers are awesome. And mark making, scribble marks are great, which we can talk about. Stitching. This I know, just the importance of creativity and making me thrive every day. I need it in my life. And I just purchased again, this was a gift under the tree. So I had ordered a book titled, pretty sure it's Your Brain on Art. And I've only just started it. And it seems like a really good book. And it just reinforces the benefits of creativity and art in your life, even if it's just play. It's just considered such a healthy, mindful activity that we all need in our life. And I can't wait to share some of the pearls from that book with you all. And draw a black circle in the middle of your page and add white marks with a gel pen. Yeah, so where do I want to go with this? We're at an hour mark, and I'm just deciding what I want to do. I think I'll probably call it there, but I'm going to see if I have my Jelly Roll pen. I suppose a question I get asked a lot is, what is the white pen that I tend to use for mark making over top of dried watercolor? And so because we're on the topic of gel pens, I just want to show you, just trying to find my white gel pen, and I'm going to talk to you about these other pens. Let's just see. Okay, I cannot seem to find, oh, there it is. And I'm just gonna give you, let's just see if I can do a demo. Too bad my white pencil had broken, because this pencil is wonderful, but these are very expensive. I had just purchased these for an art course that I was taking, and they're really, really great, permanent, almost like pencil crayons, but they're light fast, and this is called Luminance. These are by Gouache. The only thing is you need to use like a craft knife to sharpen them, because otherwise you can kind of lose part of them. They don't sharpen overly well because they're very sturdy. And I'm just gonna see, I suppose this little painting practice would be a good one to use. I'm just gonna move this. We'll let that dry. And this, I'm just gonna give you a clean paper to look at. So there's my chubby birds, and they're quite dark. So I like to do mark making over top of dark spots. How do I say? Dark watercolor backgrounds. That's where I like to add the most pop, contrast. And so with these birds, I would say this is my favorite white pen to do mark making with. This is the Japanese Posca acrylic paint pen with a fine tip, a fine nib. And these, I mean, though they're still not perfect, they can be faulty. They can like spill out paint because you have to shake them really well and then gently push down on the nib. And I haven't gotten into refilling them, but I just want to show you how you can just see when I make these little marks on this bird with the paint pen. I like to kind of do fun, energetic marks, and you can just see how opaque that mark is and how easy that was to make. So again, that's this Posca paint pen. And it's good if you're wanting to write words. And this isn't quite dry yet, but If I was to write create every day, this under watercolor wasn't quite dry, but it is, again, just has a fairly good white opacity to it. Just know that you may find the underneath watercolor may kind of bleed through into the white. So you can see how this area here is a bit less white because it picked up the watercolor underneath. That was a paint pen I was playing with. And so you can run into that. And now with this one, honestly, I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe I had painted these birds so long ago that they are really completely dry. Maybe it is the type of watercolor. This is a very high quality artist grade watercolor, whereas the blue I just showed you was more of a student grade, just a cheaper paint pen, watercolor pen. And then the jelly pen, so that was the one that was mentioned. Make marks with a white gel pen, so over the black circle. So that to me, I would guess that's probably done with like a Posca paint pen, or again, the jelly roll. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So this is what I think she's referring to as the gel pen Jelly Roll 08 by Sakura. And it's nice, but you can just see there's still a lot of ink in here. And I almost feel like it's just a bit more dry. It's not quite as opaque. It doesn't show up as nicely, and they're harder to write with. So I'm sure there's a ton of wonderful YouTube videos that are all about white pens and comparing them. Create every day. So yeah, it's just a lot lighter. And again, it picks up the blue. And so this pen, it might be good on like dark construction paper, black toned Strathmore artist paper. I just find though I wouldn't purchase these ones again intentionally. This one is a really great alternative, and this is again the Uniball Signo pen. So this is the same pen I had showed you earlier that I had used the golden bronze to embellish that watercolor painting titled Dream Up. So again, individually purchased at the art supply store. You can buy these in bulk. I use these a lot. You can see this one, the ink it's about 50%. The pen is, how do you say, half full or half empty? I like to think of it as it's half full. But when I'm trying to do that kind of fast mark making, it just doesn't look quite as good for my purpose. That's just my opinion. But it does do nice fine white marks. So I would say my first favorite is this fine white Posca paint pen in, it's called a bullet shape, 0.7 millimeters. And then it would be, if you can't get something like this, it would be the Uniball Signo. The other option would be to get a dip pen. And I just happen to have one here. I've been meaning to try this using like a high flow acrylic paint. So this is by Golden, this is titanium white. And using, this is, I'm trying to think, this is a dip pen. And I would actually, if you really want to get the opaque white permanent pen for mark making, I would probably recommend kind of splurging into a really high quality white, highly pigmented ink. I don't have enough experience to really recommend one, but I feel like this is, I actually had this out on my art table because it's something I want to try at some point in time. And I'll just see if I have the lid off. I do, so I can try that with you all now. So I'm gonna shake it up. This is the High Flow Fluid Acrylic by Golden, and this is what I would use. I think I need to do a bit of research, but if I was to refill this Posca paint pen, I would take out the cartridge and I'd shake this up and then I would fill it into the pen instead of buying another one. But it's easy to say that. It's just a real, you know, you need time and you need to kind of prioritize, again, less waste. And okay, so that's mixed up really nicely. And dip pens I'm still trying to get the hang of, but this is by, is it Taki, what's the name? I think it's Takikawa, but I can also link this in the description. And I had put this little, this is for just dexterity for myself. And I'm just gonna scoop up some white paint. And I know that I'll probably tip that over. I'm just gonna put the lid back on. And then there's different ways of holding the pen, but this is good that I'm practicing with you all. Whoa. So yeah, there's more room for, sort of room for error in the sense that if you're not comfortable using these pens, I'm trying it by turning it with the scoop up and then also with the scoop down. I mean, if you're interested in these, I would just recommend checking out, again, there's lots of YouTube videos on using dip pens. But I think if you get comfortable, it's a great way of adding mark making over top of, how do you say, a darker background. I'm gonna see if I have, do I have a dark piece of paper? I'm just gonna do, so I'm just gonna fill it up again. And I'm gonna just play. Yeah, so I think just as a matter of practice, this is a really, really great option. So I'm holding it with the spoon shape, I forget what that's called, downward, kind of where it's holding the ink. And I'm just gonna put the lid on here. And so if I was to try this with my artwork, I would definitely have a little, maybe a little glass jar to dip into, like, you know, pour some of this into a glass jar that has a lid so I could just kind of use it as needed. It just definitely takes practice. Writing my name. I kind of like the sound of it, that scratching sound. So, yeah, that's just another option, I suppose, if you're looking for something really great with practice. Just gonna see if I have another watercolor painting that I want to use. So if I was wanting to do white mark making, this little painting just happened to have a few dark places, but it's not as precise, so you have to be kind of open to marks that don't all look the same, that might be asymmetric. But a little bit of the paint does go a long way, and it's not really picking up the watercolor underneath. So I might just try doing some mark making on the pink, maybe just like little X's. The cool thing is I'm finding I can make the details really tiny, and it would be hard to get such fine details with the paint pen, the Posca paint pen. Even though they have fine nibs, this is a really, really fine mark. And it just takes practice, I think. I'm like, what else can I use this paint on? Because I don't like wasting. And I might just scoop it back up. Watch, I like spill the whole thing. Trying to save a little bit of paint, right? You know, this paint, it's not cheap, so there are probably some more affordable options, like I think it's PH Martin. Oops, I put a bit of turquoise watercolor in there, that's okay. There's probably some options if you go to your local art store. Again, just look up some videos online, how to find a white permanent ink. And just clean off my brush, my dip pen. Okay, so yeah, the other thing I guess I wanted to show you, depending on the look you're going for, this is just a water-soluble white pencil crayon. So it really looks more like a crayon would, and it activates with water. So that has some use for sure in mark making, depending on what you like. And this one, again, I'm just gonna use this tip here. This one is excellent. It's sort of the same texture. I'm using I bought, what is this? It was a dog toy made of recycled plastic bottles. But this is pretty much the same mark, this Caran d'Ache luminance pencil, but it's permanent and light fast compared to this Supercolor Soft 2 water soluble pencil by Caran d'Ache, which is not permanent. So meaning if I do water over top, that one does not move, whereas the other one moves. It'd be nice if I could show you on a darker piece of paper, but I'm gonna just finish by maybe picking a card from my art poetry deck, and it's been over an hour, almost an hour and 20. I'm just gonna randomly pull a card. I'm just gonna actually shuffle them up a bit more. And some of them I've noticed are turned around. And this one I'll leave you with. This is one of my girls from Matters of the Art series, and it says practice reflection and mirror confidence. And again, as I was mentioning before, art has given me so much confidence, and it's just a matter of really finding yourself through art and finding what you enjoy and not putting pressure on yourself. And you will get better at what you're doing. It just takes practice, it takes time. And really also, I think, again, it's like, for me, reflecting back maybe some of those negative thoughts, that negativity that I feel like was reaching into me. So thinking about that art card that I had pulled at the beginning of the video, and really wanting to practice changing that dialogue, that negative dialogue, into something more positive, and the first step is just being aware that you're doing it. So for me, I caught myself this morning and I thought I just have this very negative internal dialogue when everything around me is actually pretty positive today. And why am I kind of drumming that up in my head? And again, the holidays can be tough because we all, holidays are just complex, right? Even at the best of times. But just mirroring confidence, remembering that I have a young child that is, I want to be a role model for, and just being mindful. And really digressing away from this video, but I just want to say a shout out to Kristen and thank you for that beautiful watercolor set and all that artwork. And also thank you so much for all of you being here. I've really missed doing videos, and today, December 26th, Boxing Day, so much going on in the world, and I chose to take this time and do a video with you all because I had a bit of time to myself, and it really is something I enjoy so much, which brings me back to this card by Kaylee Gray, who started Get Messy. And this I know, so right now when you're listening to this, what is something you know for sure? And for me, I know for sure I need creativity. I need to share my inspiration. I need to pull inspiration from others. I also love to indulge in YouTube videos and online courses. And I'm just really grateful for this opportunity with you all, because I know for sure creativity is what makes me thrive and makes me a better person. And so does this beautiful community. I hope everybody is warm and well, and just thank you again.